Welcome back, everyone, to another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling something a little bit different.
Oh,
We are going to be looking at a section of the Bible,
okay.
the first epistle to Timothy, chapter 6.
All right.
Now, before you click away thinking that this is going to be a sermon or something,
Right.
I promise it's not.
Okay.
This chapter is full of advice that's surprisingly relevant even today,
Interesting.
dealing with stuff like work wealth and even how to handle arguments.
It really is fascinating how this ancient text speaks to such timeless human dilemmas.
Exactly. So let's jump right in.
Okay.
The chapter starts off by addressing slaves and their masters.
Uh-huh.
I know that might sound a bit jarring to modern ears, but stay with me.
Okay.
Because there's more to it than meets the eye.
Right.
Verses 1 and 2 actually emphasize respect and honor, even within that very unequal power dynamic of master and slave.
Right.
It's not condoning slavery, of course,
Of course not.
but it's pushing this idea that even when you're in a situation you can't control, you can control your own actions and how you treat others.
I see.
It's like it's saying, hey, even if your boss is a jerk,
Yeah.
you can still choose to be professional and respectful.
Keep your integrity.
Yeah, you gotta keep your integrity.
Yeah.
Does that seem like a stretch to connect that to today's world?
Not at all.
Okay.
Think about it.
Yeah.
We've all had those nightmare bosses or coworkers, right?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
But if you let their bad behavior dictate your own,
Right.
you just contribute to a toxic environment.
Ugh.
This ancient advice is about taking the high road, which honestly is tough,
Yeah.
but valuable advice for anyone navigating a tricky workplace.
Yeah, I like that. That's a really interesting way to look at it.
Yeah.
So it's not just about blind obedience,
Right.
but about choosing to act with integrity, even when
Yeah.
it's difficult.
Exactly.
But the chapter doesn't stop there.
Okay.
It jumps into another tricky topic.
Money.
Yes. Verses 3 through 10 give us a pretty stark warning about false teachings and the love of money. Right.
And this section is often misinterpreted.
Really?
You know that saying, money is the root of all evil?
Oh, yeah. I feel like I've heard that one a million times.
Well, it's actually a misquote.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Wow.
The actual text says, the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil. That little word love changes everything.
Oh, wow.
It's not about money itself being bad,
Right.
but about the obsession, the craving for it.
Uh-huh.
That can lead to some pretty dark places.
I see what you mean. But doesn't everyone want to be financially secure?
Well, sure.
How do we draw the line between wanting a comfortable life
Right.
and being obsessed with wealth?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And one I think the chapter tries to answer
Okay.
by highlighting the pitfalls of prioritizing wealth over everything else.
All right.
It lists things like pride, a lack of understanding, pointless arguments, envy.
Wow.
It's like this downward spiral where the pursuit of money ends up costing you everything else that truly matters.
So it really is kind of like what they say.
Yeah.
You can't buy happiness.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've kind of seen the dark side of the love of money,
Right.
but what's the alternative? What's the right way to view wealth according to this chapter?
Well, verse 6 introduces this beautiful concept, godliness with contentment. It's this idea that true gain comes not from what you have,
Right.
but from an inner sense of peace and fulfillment.
So it's not about being poor.
No.
It's about not letting your possessions define you.
Exactly. Material things are fleeting.
I see.
Real satisfaction comes from something deeper, from aligning your actions with your values,
Okay.
from finding purpose beyond just accumulating stuff.
Right.
And honestly, that resonates so much with modern trends like minimalism
Yeah.
and the focus on experiences over material goods.
Yeah, definitely.
We seem to be rediscovering this ancient wisdom.
Kind of coming full circle, but how practical is that really?
Right.
I mean, we all need money to survive in this world.
And that's true.
How can we find that contentment in a world that's constantly telling us we need more?
That's the challenge, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's something we'll delve into more deeply as we continue our exploration of this chapter.
Okay.
But before we move on, curious to hear what you think so far. What's resonating with you most from these opening verses?
You know what? For me, it's that idea of finding contentment even when you're in a tough situation.
Yeah.
It's like a reminder that we have more control over our own happiness than we might realize.
I agree.
But I know there's a lot more to unpack here.
There is.
Yeah.
The chapter then shifts gears and gives us a powerful call to action.
Okay.
And that's where it gets really interesting.
Oh, okay. Let's dive into that. What exactly does this call to action involve?
Verses 11 and 12 urge Timothy, and by extension all of us,
Okay.
to fight the good fight of faith and pursue righteousness.
Oh.
Now, this might sound a bit intense,
Yeah, a little bit.
like we're gearing up for some epic battle,
Right.
but it's less about literal combat and more about
Hold on. That sounds fascinating.
Yeah.
But we've covered a lot of ground already.
we.
Maybe we should pause here
Okay.
and pick up this thread in the next part of our deep dive.
All right.
What do you think?
I think that's a great idea.
Yeah.
Let's give our listeners some time to absorb all this
Yeah.
before we jump into the next exciting part of the chapter.
No, sounds good.
Welcome back. I'm glad we're taking the time to really unpack this chapter
Yeah, me too.
because, as you said, there's a lot to delve into.
Yeah, and I'm really curious to hear if anything's resonating with you, our listeners so far.
Right.
This ancient wisdom might seem a bit out there,
Yeah,
but I have a feeling some of it is hitting home.
I think so.
But let's pick up where we left off. You're about to explain this fight the good fight idea.
Right.
It sounded pretty intense.
Right. Verses 11 and 12. It's a call to action,
Okay.
but it's not about physical combat.
I see.
It's more about this inner struggle we all face
Uh-huh.
to live up to our values, to resist negative influences,
Right.
to constantly strive for personal growth.
So it's about those everyday battles we have with ourselves,
Yeah.
like resisting that extra slice of cake,
Uh-huh.
or finally getting around to that project we've been putting off.
Exactly.
It's about pushing ourselves to be better, right?
That's part of it, for sure.
Okay.
But it goes beyond just self-improvement.
Okay.
It's also about having the courage to stand up for what you believe in, even when it's difficult.
Oh, I see.
Maybe it's speaking out against injustice,
Yeah.
advocating for a cause you're passionate about,
Mm-hmm.
or even just making those tough ethical choices in your daily life.
So it's like choosing the harder right over the easier wrong.
Yeah.
That's not always easy, especially when everyone else seems to be taking the easy route.
Exactly. And that's where faith comes in.
Okay.
It's about having that inner conviction, that belief in something bigger than yourself
Right.
that gives you the strength to stay the course even when it gets tough.
I see.
I mean, look at the history of social justice movements. People of faith have often been at the forefront of fighting for equality and pushing for positive change, even when facing incredible opposition.
That's true. That makes sense. But it also makes me think about those who exploit faith for their own gain.
Yeah.
We see that a lot today, don't we?
Sadly, yes.
People twisting religious ideas
Right.
to justify greed or intolerance.
Unfortunately.
How do we reconcile that with this call to fight the good fight?
That's a really important point.
Yeah.
And honestly, a challenge for every generation.
Sure.
I think this chapter encourages us to be discerning,
Okay.
to really examine what we believe and why,
Right.
and to make sure our actions are truly aligned with those beliefs.
It's about walking the walk.
Exactly. It's about seeking truth, even if it means challenging our own assumptions or the views of those around us.
So it's like this constant process of self-reflection and growth, right?
Yes.
It's about staying open to new perspectives,
Mm.
but also holding fast to those core values that guide our actions. But this chapter doesn't just offer vague advice about fighting metaphorical battles.
Right.
It also gets pretty specific when addressing the wealthy.
You're right, and I find that part particularly fascinating.
Yeah.
It's not every day you see a religious text calling out the potential pitfalls of wealth.
Yeah. Usually it's just leave more to the church, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here in verses 17 through 19, it's more nuanced than that.
Okay.
It cautions the rich against arrogance
Mm.
and putting their hope solely in material possessions.
So don't put all your eggs in one basket.
Right. It emphasizes that true security comes from something deeper, from a spiritual foundation, not from how much money you have.
Okay, so it's not about demonizing wealth itself, but about recognizing the temptations that come with it.
Exactly.
It's about how easily wealth can become an idol, something you put your faith in instead of something greater.
Precisely. And it's not just a warning.
Okay.
It goes on to outline what the wealthy should do with their resources. Be generous, do good deeds, and use their wealth to create a positive impact on the world.
It's like a blueprint for ethical wealth management.
Right.
It's not just about having money, but about how you use it to make a difference.
I agree.
So it's not just relevant for billionaires, right?
Yeah.
Anyone with resources, even on a smaller scale, can apply these principles.
Absolutely. It's about recognizing that wealth, no matter how much or how little, comes with a responsibility.
Responsibility, okay.
It's about being a good steward of what you've been given.
I like that. A steward, it's not about ownership, but about responsible management.
Yeah.
But I'm curious, have you ever struggled with this idea of contentment versus the desire for more?
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, we all get tempted by shiny new things, right?
Oh, for sure.
Wait, before you share that story, I think we should take a little pause here.
Okay.
Let our listener really ponder that idea of responsible stewardship and what it means to them. We'll be right back to hear your story and explore the final and perhaps most crucial part of this chapter. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. It's amazing how much wisdom we can find even in just one chapter of this ancient text.
It is.
You know, we've been exploring some pretty deep stuff.
We have.
From fighting those internal battles to wrestling with the temptations of wealth.
It's been quite a journey.
Yeah.
And before we wrap up our exploration of 1 Timothy chapter 6,
Okay.
I think it's worth revisiting that final piece of advice, the warning against empty words.
You know, that's the part that really stuck with me. It
Wow.
feels so relevant today.
Yeah.
In today's world, you know,
Right.
where we're constantly bombarded with information from all sides.
Yes.
How do we even know what to believe anymore?
Right. It's a real challenge.
It is.
In verses 20 and 21, Timothy is warned to guard what has been entrusted to him
Okay.
and avoid these empty words, this false knowledge.
So how do we do that?
Well, I think it starts with being aware of our own biases.
Okay.
You know, we all have them, whether we realize it or not.
Right.
And those biases can influence how we interpret information, even if we think we're being objective.
That's true. So it's about being honest with ourselves about our own preconceived notions.
Yes.
And being willing to challenge them.
Exactly.
It's about actively seeking out diverse perspectives,
Well,
even those we might initially disagree with.
yes, being willing to have our minds changed,
Oh, wow.
to admit when we're wrong.
Okay, so being open-minded.
Open-minded, yes.
Yeah.
And also being skeptical.
Okay.
Not in a cynical way, but in a way that pushes us to ask questions,
All right.
to dig deeper, to not just take things at face value.
So it's like being a curious investigator.
Yes.
Always asking why.
Exactly.
That's the evidence.
Right.
Who benefits from this information being presented this way?
Those are great questions to ask.
And it's about seeking out reliable sources of information.
Yes.
Sources that have a track record of accuracy and integrity.
Absolutely.
It's about being willing to do the work, to put in the effort to really understand the issues, rather than just going with the easiest or most convenient explanation.
That's so important.
Yeah, it's so easy to just scroll through social media
I know.
and accept whatever headlines grab our attention.
Right.
But this chapter reminds us that we have a responsibility to be more thoughtful, more critical, more engaged with the information we're consuming.
It's about taking ownership of our own beliefs. Yeah. And making sure they're grounded in something solid.
You know, it strikes me that this whole chapter,
Yeah.
with its focus on right conduct, contentment, and the pursuit of truth, could be seen as a guidebook for navigating the complexities of modern life.
Absolutely. It's like a timeless wisdom that transcends cultural and historical boundaries.
Yeah.
It's about finding meaning and purpose beyond the pursuit of material wealth,
Right.
treating others with respect, even in challenging situations,
Mm-hmm.
and remaining grounded in truth amidst a sea of misinformation.
It really is a call to action for each of us,
It is.
regardless of our background or beliefs.
So as we conclude our deep dive into 1 Timothy chapter 6, I hope you found it as thought-provoking as we have.
Yeah, me too.
It's amazing how these ancient words can still speak to us so powerfully today.
It really is. It's been an incredible journey exploring these timeless principles.
Yes.
And I hope you'll join us next time as we continue to delve into fascinating topics and uncover those hidden gems of knowledge. Until then, keep diving deep, keep seeking truth, and keep those empty words at bay.